Hi everybody, it's Nathan Cool with Swell Watch on surfingmagazine.com. It's February 27th, 2016 and time for another El Nino weather and surf update. A lot of stuff's been going on, although you wouldn't tell it unless you went to the beach and saw actually what was breaking, because we haven't had a lot of rain. It's been a different type of El Nino, a bit of dry one. Something I talked about in the last couple of videos too, how we've got a different atmospheric bridge that's happening because no two El Ninos are alike, but especially this one is very different, especially not just from the warmth of the water, not just the depth of the water, but also the placement of that warm water and what's been happening to affect just the weather that's off of Southern California. But a lot of stuff is still going on. A lot of powerful surf. We've had a lot of great swells come in. Still got more on the way. I wanted to show you what's coming on the horizon surf-wise, not just from the northern hemisphere, but the southern hemisphere is also starting to show signs of life. Also seeing some signs of life that's also on the weather radar. We could actually possibly see some rain during the month of March. Throwing statistics aside, I'm going to take a look right at the models and what's really happening, what we could be seeing. Not necessarily Miracle March, but at least something to give us a little something wet. Let's dive right into it. Got a lot to cover. This is what's going on right now. So the first thing we'll take a look at is where El Nino is, and the ever familiar models that we see off the equatorial Pacific, the warm waters compared to 1998. This is 1998 around this time. This was actually February 28th. 1998. We can see that there was a very strong El Nino even back then. Now remember, February was our wettest month back in 1998. Wasn't that case in 2016, but there was a big difference. Something I've been talking about for over a month now. You see how this warm water was very strong in 1998 off of Peru, but look at the big gap. We continue to have this big gap. So what's happening is most of the warm water is staying more in the central Pacific, and this is known as a Modoki or a Central Pacific El Nino. But the big take-home point on this is, of course, no two El Ninos are alike. Yes, we do have a difference in temperature compared to what we had before in the other parts of the Pacific, where now we have a much warmer Pacific overall in 2016 than what we had before. And all those things combined, where the warm water is, how the warm water is in relationship to other areas of colder water in the Pacific, we come into the issue of having a different atmospheric bridge. So basically, if you have boulders in a stream of water, and those boulders are represented by these areas of warm water and cold water, which then also have a relationship to high and low pressure systems above and below them, the streams of water would move around them. And of course, in the atmosphere, we have jet streams and also these Hadley cells. We have an entire atmospheric bridge that takes weather from basically one point of the earth to another. So if you have low pressure, it might be affecting high pressure in someplace else. So when we take a look then at what's happening with the jet stream now. So this is taking a look down at the North Pole. This is North America down here. You can see there's Baja, Southern California would be right here. We can see that the jet stream is very strong coming across normally low latitudes across the northern Pacific. But then it kind of dies out here, and we've been seeing this gap now for a month and a half or so. I've been showing this on the various other video reports that I've been doing. And that's causing a lot of problems. That actually is dominated by high pressure. If we take a look then at the vorticity of that, and this then shows in red, basically think of this as low pressure and the blue being high pressure. Strong high pressure ridge still remaining off the west coast. Why? Well, we don't have that warm water that was causing a lot of low pressure dominating then the entire eastern Pacific from what would be a good atmospheric bridge. Instead, what we have is we've got then, so much different from what we had in 1998, we've got this just kind of neutral area of water. Look at the difference in temperature in 98. So when we see that, we can see that, yeah, we've got what would affect more low pressure here in the Central Pacific, especially the northern Central Pacific, from that atmospheric bridge, but it's not doing the same job over here in the more off toward the west coast, because the atmospheric bridge is, of course, different. So that affects a teleconnection known as the Pacific North American pattern, and it's called the P&A index. And here's a great example of it. Now, this is just kind of a result. It doesn't influence El Nino, it's kind of a result of El Nino, and it kind of tells you what's going on. This may look like an El Nino graph, and of course a lot of these graphs just looks very similar. This is provided by NOAA. And we can see where we are down here in 2015, 2016. Important point here, 2016, yes, we are seeing a rise. 2015 had a very strong PNA signal, especially near the end of 2015. Take a look though at 1997, 1998. 1997 had a negative PNA. It had a very positive one then as we went into 1998 and especially February of 1998. So much different from what we're seeing now where, we did have a lot of rain that hit us for a very short period, but not for very long. 1998, 1997 shaped up differently. Once again, no two El Niños are alike, so a lot of differences happening, and it all boils down to where the placement is of that warm water across the equatorial Pacific. And just to recap, it's a lot different. A lot different than what we were. And if you look back on previous models and also previous videos where I showed what was happening around December, January time frame down in 1997, 1998, this was massively red, very, very strong, and especially strong once we get off Peru. So much different this time around, so much different. The pattern is just so much different that we see now a decreasing trend in El Nino. This is a very bizarre thing that happened. Usually El Nino peaks and drops. Well, what happened recently, and it was into January, it started picking back up again. It surprised a lot of the models. Well, it's been dying back off again, and it's got a very precipitous drop that's expected to occur very shortly. But what's very interesting on this, a little bit I touched on the last video, there's a chance we could go into another El Nino. These, once you get past this point, and all these squirrely lines going everywhere, these are the different model scenarios. So all these different models are predicting different scenarios, what could happen, and it looks like it's all over the map, but when you take a mean of that, kind of the average, you take a look at the mean value going across here with these dashed lines, it doesn't look like we're going to go into La Nina. No matter how you look at it, it looks like we could go into another El Nino late in the year, and then of course that would be great news if we can get some rain out of that. And surf wouldn't hurt a bit either, would it? All right, let's take a look at the 3-month mean on it. The El Nino's 3.4 region. This is kind of the biggest indicator. Just really quickly, we can see that the big 3, 1982 here in blue, it was very strong, but didn't compare to 1997. And 2015 has almost been running parallel to it, but it hasn't, and there's been some big differences for that. When we think about the record-breaking El Nino, this was the graph that everybody would relate to, and that's that at one point in time, this yellow is 2015, 2016, we can see that at one point in time late last year, there was a peak, and it was a record-breaking El Nino, but this anomaly was only by a seasonal month. It wasn't a 3-month mean, it wasn't a climate trend, it just very temporarily peaked and then backed off, and of course everything is starting to back off now. So let's take a look at where we compare as surf-wise when we go back then to 1998. Rain's one thing, but look at the surf difference here. So when we look through the month of February, it was very wet. It was extremely wet during the entire month of February back in 1998, and of course it's almost completely dry this time around in 2016. But the surf, look at this, the red line here, these are the surf heights off of Harvest Buoy. Just immense swell that's been coming in. El Nino swell after El Nino swell. So we've been seeing a lot of that. So it's not that El Nino is gone, it's just that if you haven't gotten to the coast and seen this, so anybody surfing knows that El Nino has been here and it's been very strong to boot. So now we take a look at then the weather models. So this is what's going on right now across the Pacific. We can see a very strong low pressure. This is very typical of El Nino, and all those L's are low pressure. The green here is precipitation. But not a lot of precipitation is making it to Southern California because we still have this very dominant high pressure that's sitting off of our region, and that's blocking it. When we start moving the models forward in time, you can see how that works out. Every time one of those storms come along, that blocking high pressure keeps it to the north. But keep your eye on Southern California and you'll see that eventually, right around, this is the 4th, a little bit of rain could head our way, and look how weak then that high pressure is off of our coast, and there's another storm coming in. Moving the models forward in time, we can see that it struggles, but eventually some moisture could make it in our way. That's heavy rain right there. That's about a 1/2 inch for Southern California, but it's more from Point Conception down to LA. Orange County, San Diego would have a real tough time seeing this. This would be around the 6th, Sunday the 6th and Monday the 7th, California time. Moving the models forward in time, we can see that that would try to progress farther south, but look at the high pressure that once again sits off our region, and that's blocking that from coming in. And of course, high pressure related to the disruption in the atmospheric bridge due to the placement of that warm water down in the El Nino zones. So we could keep moving the models forward in time, and we can see that, yeah, there are some possible chances of precip on the long range that might hit us. This is more of a dream than anything else. We're out here on a 288-hour model. I don't put a lot of faith in that kind of a forecast that far out. But when we even get farther out, look at this. Another one could possibly hit us maybe around the 13th. That's a hope and a prayer at this point. Still a lot of high pressure blocking us. So let's take a look at the surf. And what we've got here, this is one of my models off wavecast.com. And we know that we've had a lot of big swells coming. I've been talking about that, especially in my reports on Surfing Magazine the last couple weeks. But we do have some more stuff headed our way. So let's take a look. Let's move these models forward in time. We can see these are the swell heights. There's a little bit of something kind of happening here. Not a whole lot headed our way. Keep your eye on this system right here. As this starts moving across and starts gaining strength because the jet stream is just low enough coming across this portion of the Pacific. Remember, it gets blocked out here, but it still has time to build. And as it does, we move those models forward in time, we can see that this starts getting about 35-foot seas. And this is probably about, I don't have my charts in front of me, it's about 1,800, 1,500 nautical miles away from us. Stays at a higher latitude somewhat because of the high pressure that's blocking off of here. But this could still bring some very powerful surf our way around March 4th. Southern California has the possibility from this one to see double overhead surf on March 4th into March 5th as well. So that's on the horizon, and then keep your eye on what's happening here. Coming off Kamchatka, we possibly could get another one that could happen a few days later. Have to see how that unfolds. As far as the southern hemisphere goes, there's a little couple something down here. We've got off New Zealand activity. This originally was down near that region. Moving the models forward in time, we can though see what happens around New Zealand. A lot of activity starting to form there, and especially on the long range. Here we go. 84 hours out, we've got this one here. This could actually bring then Southern California some swell around the 8th or 9th. Not a bad size system. It looks like it's pretty big, 35-foot seas. We're talking over 5,000 nautical miles away. That's a big difference. So there's a lot of loss. You know, we're talking chest high compared to when we had storms that were a lot closer to us in the northern hemisphere that could bring us double overhead surf. Still, we're almost at March, and it is just about time for us to start transitioning into the southern hemisphere swell season, but it is kind of neat to see this actually forming this early. So El Nino's here. It's definitely been here. We've been seeing a lot more surf than rain out of it. Still could see some rain during the month of March, but it looks like we're still going to be heading into a very serious drought. You can go to Drought Monitor, you can Google that, and you can see that we're in some very dire straits when it comes to the drought in Southern California. Great news is that some of that rain, though, has been going up to the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of drought relief has come to that area, which is great news for the entire West. And there's other areas, too, in the United States that have benefited from this El Nino as well. As far as surfing along the California coast, it's been great. There's been a lot of great swells. If you're daring enough to go out in that size, quite honestly, I admit I don't. I know my limits, and I don't get out when it's that big. I do like to live to surf another day. But there is still great news on the horizon for a lot more swells that will be headed our way over the coming weeks. And it looks like we could have a very timely transition into some southern hemisphere swells as the coming months come along. But that's about all that I've got really for now. If you'd like to get more updates on this, which I'm trying to get more frequent as more things start unfolding, especially with the southern hemisphere season coming up, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Doesn't cost you anything, and as soon as one of these videos are posted, you'll be notified. You can also follow my forecasts on surfingmagazine.com. Just go to forecasts.surfingmagazine.com, and I concentrate on Southern California. Also, if you want to, you can follow me on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/NathanToddCool. Well, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for being a subscriber. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care, be safe, and smile in the lineup.